Good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. It's 8 o'clock. Glad to see all you faces out there. Thank you for attending this presentation. My name is Paige Hingst. I am the Tribal Response Program Manager for the Santee Sioux Nation, located in Northeast Nebraska. I am the moderator for this session. We're glad to have you here. We have some great speakers today. We have Darryl Slade from the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, and he's going to talk about employee retention in a post-pandemic workplace. And then we have Scott Boorse from PEI, who's going to show us some demonstrations on some sample courses that you can take through their website and give you some other information about workplace and hiring and training. So we hope you have a great, hope this is a great session for you. You learn a lot. We're glad to, like I said, to have you here. And we will take questions after each presentation. So we'll give, the presenters will give you we'll have about 10 minutes 5 to 10 minutes for Q&A after each presentation. So if you have questions after they're presenting, please raise your hand and I'll bring you the mic and you can ask your question. And with that, I'm going to introduce to you Darryl Slade from the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to be here. Thursday. Who's flying out today? I'm flying out tomorrow. But anyway, it's good to have you here. My perspective is from a government side of the post-pandemic hiring and retention, but it applies also to the private side. And so I'll go through some slides of how we experienced this, and I think it'll bring back some memories I had creating this PowerPoint. It's like, oh yeah, that was weird back then. I do want to point out our state capitol. We're at the front of the Missouri River in Jeff City. Jeff City is a small state capital, but the city is behind the view, not in sight. That's across the river, the farmland, but it's a good-looking state capital right on the Missouri River. All right, so the overview, I'm going to talk about the challenges we've had hiring workforce during and after the COVID experience. What Missouri DNR did to address these issues. Some of this we had to come to very quickly. You know, it all of a sudden they said go home and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Well, that 2 weeks turned into a year and a half before we could come back. And lessons learned moving forward. We have found that the job market is even more competitive. Being in government, we're sort of tied to what the governor wants us to do as far as like where we can work now and things of that nature. Reminder, you know, going back to March of 2020 is really when it all hit us in Missouri. This is a few months in 2020. You can see how that spiked the COVID cases. You know, all of a sudden it just exploded. And then we knew, you know, things were starting to build up in January, February, in March, but the second week of March is when we were told to go home, and I'm sure a lot of you experienced the same thing. All of a sudden, we're dealing with this issue, and what are we going to do? And so again, March 2020, all staff was, basically that's probably all state employees, but I'm referring more to Missouri DNR, to go home. They said, come back, we'll see you in 2 weeks. That's what thinking was back then. Go home. In May of 2021, they came up with a policy of a hybrid workplace, which sort of brought us back into the office on a limited scale, a very controlled environment. And then of May of this year, the governor said all state employees back to the office. And that's sort of a national trend. Our governor sort of follows the national trends of movement. So let's get in more detail where things are at. At the beginning, working, you know, again, they said go home. Take your computers and go home. We had no policies in place. We've never worked from home. We had field staff, but they all worked from their our main office. So we had no staff working from their homes. And so everyone said, go home. Equipment needs. A lot of us did not have laptops. There's not much forward thinking on why would you need a laptop. You can put your desktop on your desk and it's there until we replace it in 5 years. And so trying to find enough laptops, and that was a problem. We did have to take some desktop computers home. Connecting to the mainframe, that was, again, an IT issue that they struggled with a lot. How are we going to connect to the mainframe? We're all digital. We rely on that mainframe. We'll send people home with computers, but unless you can connect to the mainframe, there's not much you can do. As far as our supervisor, management of your employees. We know our employees quite well, but I didn't see them for a while. And how are we going to address those issues? So these were some of the things the first few weeks that we had to address very quickly. Challenges were working from home. You're feeling disconnected. Some people may have always worked in an office environment. Now you're at home. Can we trust, as a supervisor perspective, can we trust that they're getting up at a certain time performing those job duties? How do you collaborate with coworkers? This is I can remember, getting Zoom on our computers, and Zoom was not then supported by state IT, and we used WebEx and all these formats to have meetings. Public perception, and that's still always a concern, is state employees going home, well, are they really working? A concept like that. I had some employees that wanted to get up real early or work late at night. And our standard, it's in our policies of the hours that we can work, so we had to control that on when are the expected work hours. Managing performance of the employees. Again, we have a lot of metrics in place, but how do we control what work is getting done? And we actually saw long term that our employees were very efficient out in the field working from home. Develop a team atmosphere. Again, everyone's at home. How do you continue to maintain that team atmosphere? These are some of the challenges that we had. Now, there was always going to be benefits. We did see that was increased productivity. We had metrics in place beforehand so we could start measuring things very quickly. But that's not always the case. You got to have good employees. Employee retention. Retaining workforce is always a challenge. Reduce absenteeism. If I had sniffles or something and I was working from home, I could probably work a little bit more without having to call in sick. We had also an issue that if you had child care at home, are you really taking care of your children or are you working? And so that continues to be a difficult thing. Flexibility with work-life integration. Everyone was struggling in the beginning. Everything was thrown up in the air. Everyone's working from home. I know my perspective. My wife was at home working. Our kids were at home doing school at home for that first 9 months or so. And so all of a sudden, the whole family was at home and we were all working. And so definitely advantages or disadvantages. Cost savings. I have a 30-minute drive to work. Live in Columbia, Missouri. Jeff City's our state capital. So there's always an advantage to not having to gas up the car as much. So in May of 2021, again, this started in March of 2020. Things sort of got settled down. We've been working good, everyone from home. And then DNR management, the governor's office came up with a policy that allowed sort of more of a hybrid workforce where we could have people come back into the office maybe 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and then work the rest of the week at their home. As supervisors, I was in the office 3 days a week. And we tried to schedule that where not all employees were in the office at the same time. We had then established our Zoom meetings, or we call them WebEx meetings, where we could have weekly meetings, able to connect better to employees. So a new policy came into play. One thing I found interesting was, different generations. I'm maybe old school. We have a lot of young people who come in with the department fresh out of college. Every generation looks at things a little different. I found this on Google, but yes, different generations tend to view remote work differently. Younger generations like Gen Z and millennials generally favor remote work for its flexibility and work-life balances, while older generations, baby boomers and some Gen Xers, may prefer more traditional in-office setting. And I think that's pretty realistic what we're seeing in our office. I'm sure maybe on the private side or other governmental agencies that I'm old school. I think I'm more comfortable working in the office. Well, then, that all worked good. Again, we were going along fine until this spring when our governor, we had a new governor this January, to sort of match what's going on with the national trend of things, the Missouri governor decided to require all state workers return to their main office, no longer working from home. We could see that writing on the wall for a few months. I knew that would develop some concerns and some problems, but we work with the direction of the governor. This last bullet point was sort of his justification of why we did this. Decision was made to enhance customer service through face-to-face interactions and improve collaboration among team members. As we consistently work towards achieving innovative and efficiency, we are confident that reintroducing in-person interactions will leverage our success and provide mutual benefits for both the individual team members and agency. And so that was his sort of a press release that came out in May of 25. We had about 2 to 3 weeks notice to get back into the office once that came out. And so this is where we're at now. All employees are back in the office. Not too much of a shock. We saw that coming maybe since January of this year. And so now we're transitioning now back into the office. What challenges or benefits did that bring? First of all, 50% of our staff had never worked in the office. The people that we hired during the pandemic or when we were away from the office, 50% had never worked in the office. Again, we hire a lot of young people, a lot of fresh outs getting established in their professional careers. Employee retention, I'm sure everyone saw this, that especially the younger generation, they wanted to work from home. They didn't want to go back into the office. And so maybe they would leave to look for an employer that would want to keep their employees working out of their homes. Hiring new staff. Again, I hire staff. We're telling them now that no, we no longer have a hybrid work office. You will work in the office 5 days a week. We had no issues, but some places had issues with space allocation. Everyone came back in the office after the pandemic. Maybe that space has been downsized, and they had to find new spaces for all people coming back on board. Also, maybe some of the computers, the phone systems, just the operation of an office environment coming back to full capacity. Reestablish team atmosphere. For the past few years, we had been only seeing each other maybe on limited scope face-to-face, but a lot of Zoom meetings, WebEx meetings, and all of a sudden now we are still in altogether team atmosphere. What I sort of saw the first at least few months is even though we were all in the office, we were still doing our meetings via WebEx. We'd all be in our little offices, but we would dial up and be talking to each other, maybe 20, 30 of us on a WebEx. We would no longer go down to the conference room down the hall. Well, we realized that wasn't promoting a team atmosphere as much, so we have phased into having meetings in person when it was possible. Benefits, obviously, I see that from a managerial type of perspective. Face-to-face collaboration. You can go down next door stand in the doorway and talk to your coworkers. It's so much easier talking to people. Maybe instead of typing up an email or setting up a conference call, just walk down the hall, talk to you a few minutes, or maybe in the break room about some project you both are working on. Much better face-to-face. More boundaries concerned, clear boundaries between work and personal life. Again, talked about child care. That's a sensitive topic that our policy was very clear about. If you haven't taken care of your children, you cannot work at the same time. And we try to be flexible, but we're tied to policy. And so this being more clear-cut, it is easier for management type to adhere to this work. FaceTime with supervisors and team members. I can remember interviewing employees on WebEx, wearing a tie but wearing sweatpants down below. That was sort of a weird concept, sitting in the kitchen interviewing the first person during the pandemic. But able to do face-to-face with your supervisors or team members, building that team rapport. Structured environment, regular schedules, dedicated workspaces. I'm old school. I'm used to getting up, getting to work, having that schedule, and then the evenings is my personal time. We're back, and I think most of us like this structured workforce type environment. More opportunities for mentorship. Again, we hire a lot of young people. I'm old school. I've been around a long time. I'm in my 35th year, and so I like to be a mentor to the younger people coming on board to try to help them establish their careers. Sense of belonging. From time to time we'll celebrate birthdays or have some type of a chili event, a barbecue event, snack days, things like that, when you're all in the office, and that helps build that team morale and all part of that team, which I think most of us do like to be a part of. What we've learned from working from a hybrid workspace, again, hybrid being some at home, some in the office, technology is critical. Now we're getting more cloud-based. Now everyone is issued laptops. Able to have security features, all this secondary triple layers of security get into the mainframe if you're out of the office. Be more flexible as much as the policy allows. We follow policy. Sometimes we're in a political environment, being a government employee. So we have to follow that policy, but our policy can be flexible enough that we can help things work out for the employees. Employees' well-being and mental health are crucial. Some people maybe did not adjust well-being at home, or maybe they're having a hard time going back to the workforce environment in the office. And so these are things that we always be very aware of. Adaptability and resilience are essential skills. You got to be flexible. This hit us very quickly back in 2020. You got to be ready, flexible, understanding of things can happen, and hire and retain staff in the competitive job market. We have found the job market has gotten very competitive, especially for employees, the younger generations that want to maybe work out of their home at least part of the week. We can't offer that. And so one thing the governor did was just July, an incentive for longevity of employees. And it gave us, for us long-term employees, a chance to get up to a 10% pay increase based upon your years of service. And again, I've been here 35 years, so I got a 10%. I'm at the max, but if you was here more than 20 years, this was a 10% increase. If you was there for a year or two, that created some little bit unhappiness for the young employees, but it helped retain us long-term employees who have a lot of long-term memory, able to help the program out. So I appreciated this. He was trying to help ease the situation requiring people coming back into the office. Now, we're going to talk about some data. One thing the governor did, as the last slide showed, and throughout the pandemic, we had change of governors, but state employees are not always the best paid employees. And this is just an average salary for all positions. Pulled this from our database, but you can see that there was a continual increase, especially in 2023 to 24. From 2022 to 23, you know, the governor was trying to increase the pay to keep retention. At times we had high turnover, and some of it was because of the pay. So they're trying to get more competitive. They've recognized the need to keep increasing pay increase to keep and retain employees. Now DNR, we have 1,410 employees, team members. We'll use that as a baseline in the next few slides. This is a slide that I found somewhat interesting. 0 to 5 of those employees have only been around 50%. 50% of our employees have been around 0 to 5 years employed. I'm at 35 to 40. I'm a less than 1%. But you can sort of see there where the state employees, and I would imagine other state agencies are sort of like this. We do hire a lot of fresh outs. 15 to 20 years, you know, 20, 25, still people around, but the first 10 years or so, and then sometimes we do lose staff. Eligible to retire. I'm definitely eligible to retire. I have boys in college. Our insurance is better if I'm full-time employed. I really like what I do. So I'm going to hang around a little bit longer. But this is 13% of the people right now in DNR can retire. 23% are within the first 5 years. And so as a supervisor, as a manager, HR, higher up staff, they're always talking about who is the next generation that will be coming on board? Are we getting them trained? Do we have good mentorships, internships? Let's get the next generation trained. I have one employee here from the state of Missouri. He's a young gentleman who's been here about 4 or 5 years, and this is sort of a perk for him to come to this national program, trying to keep him engaged, staying with state government. And so you see here, this is something that HR looks at a lot. I know in all agencies, all companies, but this is where we are at right now. And 23% of the employees can retire in the next 5 years. That's sort of, I think, to me, a high number. Who do we have to backfill that? So we're going to talk a little bit about sort of HR perspective, hiring, and what we'll do. Like most facilities, we have an online job search. This is where most of our positions are posted. We call it Mo Careers. All state employees positions are hired through Mo Careers, and so one can look through this as an example. Why would you work for the government or compare government to private jobs? You know, job market is now very competitive. We used to say that we had great benefits, retirement, insurance, things like that. Some of that is not as competitive anymore. And so we have to market ourselves a little bit better. We're trying to get our pay increases more frequently. Both sections have their advantage and disadvantage. Ultimately, the choice between private and government jobs depend on individual priorities, including financial goals, career aspirations, and personal values. You know, I'm very comfortable working for state government. Been here for 35 years. Some employees want to, you know, maybe get established with their professional career and then move into the private sector, where obviously they could make more money, but there's, I think, maybe more job security on the government side. So bottom line is going to come down to the employee themselves on what they want to do. It's our job to try to make it more incentive to stay. You know, we're public service. We work and we provide a good community impact, protecting the environment. That's a good objective. Career growth, definitely there's a lot of opportunity to grow with state government within DNR, and there's just stability. Work-life balance, you know, I work 40 hours. They don't pay overtime. It's 40 hours. And so I can plan my life after work, in evenings, whenever. I know when my vacations are. I have my leave, I have my benefits, and so that's not ever going to be taken away. And I contribute maybe more to a larger mission, protecting the environment with DNR, for example. Some other things HR tries to do, a lot of HR does this too, they have hiring events. These are just some examples of things I pulled off the web page of their hiring events. They're always hiring events. They also recently then started inviting supervisors to come out and help for like these job fairs, to be there to help explain what we do, actual face of a person who works there, just not HR perspective. I think that's been well received. We also have virtual career exploration. Again, another avenue. Maybe the younger generation, they're more used to doing things online, and so we'll have what we'll call a virtual career fair. And that's one way that they have found to be a good way to attract maybe this younger generation. This is something new this year. Refer a friend, earn some cash. And so there's some specifics to that, but if I'd bring someone in, if I would suggest someone to say, hey, why don't you come work for the DNR, and they stay for the 90-day tenure, I have incentive to get some money, maybe $250. Certain job positions that are harder to fill, like an engineer, I could get a little bit more money. And so this has worked out pretty well. I think this is just another way that they're trying to get employees into the building and to be hired. Internships, I'm very much in favor of internships. The second photo on the left is of my intern a couple years ago. I was out there training her as she was sticking tanks, out-of-use tanks. But internships are something that can help get that person introduced to state government. Maybe this is somewhere they want to work after graduation. And so we have found this to be a very good way to get people to come on board and then maybe come back after college. Now, on the sad side, maybe on the other side, due to the budget constraints, we've been told next year we don't have money for interns. And so this budget problem is getting to be a concern. But internships, if you can have interns, it's a great way to introduce college students to your business. How long does it take for DNR to fill a position? And this goes back from 2020 all the way to this year. And average time, it has gotten better. If you looked back in 2020, that first spike, that was at the start of COVID. Everything was sort of uncertain. Then they got into a groove. If you look in 2024, we're getting back more into more of an office environment, a little bit harder to fill positions. But since then, we've been pretty consistent, about 75 days or so to fill a position once it gets posted to once it is hired. Average number of job postings. Again, if you look in 2025, about 10 postings or so that we would consider legitimate applications. You always will have some applications that really are just putting applications in, don't really meet the qualifications. But, with our jobs, we're pretty specific what we're looking for. I'm looking for engineers, geologists, environmental scientists. We'll usually have about 10 or so of good candidates to choose from. 90-day exit rate. DNR is at 3%, statewide at 17%. So that's good for us. I think that's a good number. After 90 days, if that employee's still around, most likely they're going to stay around. So we're at 3%, and these are actual data information from this past year. So I'm pretty proud of that. Full-time versus turnover rate. The state turnover rate is 25%, and I think that's pretty high. We look at the DNR, it's at 14%. And we can break it down between voluntary turnover, involuntary turnover. But our turnover rate for all of DNR is at 14%, much better than statewide government. This summer, though, during the budget problems, we had a hiring chill. They wouldn't call it freeze, it's called a hiring chill, sort of a softer sounding to it. But a slowdown, we had over 100 positions open. Well, that made it hard to fill positions. Concern of the federal budget shortfalls, and we're all familiar with what's happening along with that. This fall, not too long ago, we had a thaw, and so we definitely, we can say they've allowed us to hire, but they want to be watching those positions a little closer. They will have a sign-off before we can hire any positions, but they've allowed us to start refilling that pipe chain, bring people back into the office. Turnover. We have retirement, transfer within the company, going to other agencies, quit or terminated. Why do employees leave? Lack of a work-life imbalance. They want more time at home, maybe want to work from home. Lack of recognition and appreciation. We really try hard to, recognize people, or like my employee I brought here for this National Tank Conference. Give them a little bit of recognition, acknowledge their birthdays, acknowledge special occasions or special certifications, if they get their geology degree or certification. Maybe not give them proper training, where they're properly trained and they feel they weren't doing a good job. We have a good workplace environment where we are at. We're like family, an office family, so we always promote that. I think that helps a lot with us keeping staff around. We have a good opportunity for growth. DNR is a big agency that people can move upward or lateral into various environmental positions. So inadequate compensation. They're trying hard to get more salary increases, and poor management. I think we have good management in our program. We like who our bosses are. Feeling disrespected, you got to have respect. If I'm not respected, I don't want to be there. And so as a supervisor, that's very important. Take a little time out to talk to your employees how things are going. At the end of the day, employee turnover is a fact of life. No matter what we'll do, employees will move on from time to time. That's just a fact of life. We try to keep good employees. We try to hire good employees, but sometimes they will end, no matter what you'll try to do. Maybe they found that dream job elsewhere. Maybe they've had to relocate because of their spouse. Maybe they're seeking a completely different life, career development. So when you hire, you try to find those good hires. While you can't eliminate turnover entirely, you can significantly reduce it by creating a company culture where employees feel valued, supported, and inspired to grow. And I think those are some very good take-home points to remember. Employees feel valued, supported, inspired to grow. Again, another picture of our state capitol from the other side, maybe up from ground view. But that concludes my presentation. I know we have a few minutes here for some Q&A, and I'll be up at the very end too. But if you have any Q&A, that was from our perspective of how it handled in Missouri with the COVID pandemic. Yes, in the back.
Let me get the microphone.
1 second.
Just so that everybody can hear you. I won't get my exercise.
Thank you for this, because I am actually not very loud, so this is great. I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you for that. I'm a little curious if you have data before 2020, because we all know that the world changed in 2020, but how were your numbers about being able to, the days it took to hire someone, or your employee turnover? Like, do you have, and maybe you don't, but do you have any information about kind of prior to the COVID pandemic? And how then, the world changed, and now it's kind of, we're going back to whatever, or we're going towards whatever we're going
Good
towards.
question. The data I pulled from it was really all available to the public, is from our OA agency that handles this stuff there. I didn't look at it specifically, but being as a supervisor prior to the pandemic, our turnover was a lot less. I can remember during the initial stages of the pandemic and going back into the hybrid workforce, we were working at 25%, 30% in the office in our programs of empty positions. Turnover was quite high. I think we were very competitive as far as looking at state government prior to the pandemic with what we could provide and offer. As we get more and more into hiring younger generations of people, as I showed in one slide, they're not so much wanting to work from the office 100% of the time. And so we're having that come into play too. Didn't look specifically closely at the numbers prior to the pandemic. I was focusing more pandemic forward. That information is definitely out there too. So thank you for your question.
Are you generally seeing a reduction in long-term position fills? Like, I know I'm from the state of New Mexico. Prior to COVID, we had, most of our inspectors were, 15, 20, 25-year long service employees. And now it's just like if we get to see somebody for 2 or 3 years, we're doing pretty well.
Yes, very much. We have to understand turnover happens. We're seeing maybe employees wanting to retire or move on, especially if they're in that 10 to 15 year mark, 5 to 10 year mark, and we hire back young people. Usually we're getting fresh outs, people who get established in their professional careers, maybe get their professional certifications, and then step into the private world unless they want to, be in state government for maybe more stability. And so we're just like you, absolutely, yes.
Are there any other questions? Yeah, okay. Aaron.
So you have people like me, Generation X are still working, and then you're bringing on a new person out of college. So how do you, and I know you said you do teamwork and different things to kind of make people feel like family, but how do you kind of like on a day-to-day bridge that feeling of the new person coming in versus working with this older person? Because there's already an insecurity there as well. So what do you do to kind of balance that out?
In our group, in our tank section, we have about 35 to 40 employees. And then we go up to different divisions and departments, all that. So in our tank section, we're a very close family, office-related family atmosphere that we celebrate birthdays. We have monthly events, go out for lunch or whatever like that. Our older employees understand that new employees have come on board and they have to do the training, maybe take them out into the field, provide training, or if they're a project manager, work side by side with new employees. As a supervisor, if I see there's maybe not good cooperation, then I'll have to talk to maybe the older generation employee that, hey, let's all work together. We're all here, have one goal, and try to make things work. And so luckily we have pretty good staff. Our older time employees are there for a reason. They want to be there, and like myself, foster a good mentorship to bring on the new employees for that next generation.
Just to your point, I'll say one of my things that I'm always putting out reminding people is that as a supervisor, it's my job to train my replacement. Everybody ultimately training them replacement, and it gives them that sense that you're passing your knowledge to them so that they may someday sit in your seat. They were so good to build a good team relationship.
question on retention between the state and other sort of government agencies. Do you find that you're competing with counties, municipalities, people looking at, I've been here for 5 years, I'll go to the county, jump up around?
Not really. When our staff might leave and they go to a governmental agency, it's going to be another state government agency. I don't see them going down to the county or city. While that could happen, what I'm seeing, it's not happening to me. Maybe for it's the benefits, but I think the state can have better benefits compared to maybe a city. So there's always exceptions, but I've not seen that.
Are there any other questions? Some great questions this morning. All right. Well, thank you, Darryl.
Thank you.
Very great.
Very good.
Very good.
Good luck.
So now I'd like to introduce Scott Boorse from PEI, who is going to talk about attracting and retaining a new generation of regulators and contractors. And he's going to give you a little demo. Looks interesting, so I hope you enjoy. Scott.
All right, I want to thank everybody for allowing me to come and talk. The challenge, you saw some of the things that Darryl just talked about coming out of COVID, about employee retention and things of that nature. A new generation, how do they end up getting trained? How can they understand what the industry is that we do? So that's part of my presentation today, is to talk a little bit about that and what PEI is doing. So we're going to talk a little bit about workforce development. I'll tell you about the challenges that are out there. You probably already know a lot of this stuff, but sometimes when you see the data, it really puts it into perspective of really where we are in a catastrophic situation of not having enough skilled trade workers to do what we need to do. So some of that. One of the things that PEI is trying to do is help develop that next generation and train that. Over the last 3 years, we've developed what we call the PEI Education Center. That's what I'll talk about second. I'll show you a quick demonstration about that. And then also something that's basically come out of the PEI Education Center is an actual certification that's provided by PEI for that next generation, or for all technicians at this point. And then we'll talk a little more about that. I always like to know when somebody's giving a presentation who they are and what their qualifications are. I've been in this job a very long time, about 35 years. I started as an environmental consultant. By the way, I am a geologist, not an engineer, and I can one say thing, I'm going to geek out here for a little bit, but at one of the breakouts yesterday, I sat with the Region 4 EPA folks, and there was another person that joined us, and we sat there, and I think it was the first time in the history that 7 people were geologists and 1 biologist all sitting at the same table. So just throwing that out there, I think that's the only place you'll ever see that at the National Tanks Conference. So usually it's a bunch of engineers, and well, we won't go down that road. So a little bit about my background. Like I said, I started as an environmental consultant. I did both international and domestic work, pretty much taking tanks out, underground storage tank management primarily. I then moved to what they call the retail side, and then helped a very large C-store chain develop their fueling program. And spent about a little more than 22 years there, and built, I don't know, like 650 gas stations before I left, something like that. So, and then I've been with PEI, which I really enjoy, for almost 8 years now, which seems like almost yesterday, but we had that COVID thing that we talked about that kind of screws timing up a little bit. But I really enjoy being able to give back to the industry, share my knowledge, meet the people that are out there. I mean, this is a great industry that we are in, and I include the regulatory community in that. I mean, I've built relationships with you folks out there, different states, different ideas, and everyone is always willing to share and come up with different innovative ways to solve problems. And that's what I really like about this industry the most. So So a little bit about workforce development and what PEI is doing. It's been one of the challenges that our board wants us to focus on. There is not a comment when we visit a member of PEI, a member company, which are distributors, service contractors, manufacturers. First thing they always say is, I need more help. Every single one of them. It's the first thing they say. They don't talk about P&L, they don't talk about profit. I need more help, I need more skilled people. So put that in perspective. We already know that there's a widespread shortage of skilled trades. I can be pretty opinionated on my next comment here, but us as a nation have done a very poor job over the last 3 decades of promoting the skilled trades. We did nothing but focus on college and high debt for college-aged folks, and really distracted from focusing on the trades. That's now, over the last 3 decades, put us in almost $1 trillion of, $1 trillion hit to the U.S. economy. What do I mean by that? There's just not enough stuff. We just can't get enough skilled workers to get the jobs done, and that's the actually amount of money that this country is taking a hit on because we haven't focused on that. You see there the construction jobs. This is as of today. Again, the number kind of varies widely. If these are government numbers, by the way, Bureau of Labor and Statistics. But we know that there's somewhere between 500,000 and 700,000 open jobs as of today, just in the construction industry. That doesn't include transportation or agriculture or any of the other areas, or any of you guys that are in here that are still looking for workers. That's just in the construction trades, which we're kind of including as the energy handling equipment folks. That's kind of the overall arching industry that we look at for data. The demand is also outpacing. Again, remember that first comment I mentioned? I need more help. I can't get enough tanks. I can't put the tanks in fast enough. I can't test. You're going to have to wait 30 more days because I don't have any more testers to go out there and do these things. That's really a lot of the issues that were coming up. That demand is growing at literally 4%, almost 5% per year, and it's per year. So that's the thing, and it's expected to continue to grow that way for the next 10 years. Hundreds of thousands of jobs are needed. There just aren't enough people. I thought it was interesting when Darryl shared his thing. If you looked at the folks that could retire, 36% of the people at DNR, just in Missouri, can retire between now and the next 5 years. It's the same aging workforce that we have today. There's nearly 41% of all the construction workforce can retire literally in the next 5 years. 41%, think about that. I mean, these are huge numbers, guys. We're already 500,000 people short. Now you're gonna say 41% of the 2.5 million workforce is gonna retire or go away. This is catastrophic. I mean, we really need to focus on this. Also, some of the other things, the negative perceptions of the trades. This is that idea, and again, I know I'm not telling you anything you probably don't already know, but again, this really sets the stage for what type of shortage we're looking at. If you think it's bad today, it's only going to get worse. Training pipelines, how many people can you actually train? As those folks retire as well, you lose your trainers. So the people you can do, you lose that aging workforce. They're the people that train that next generation. Competitions from other sectors, I mentioned this. I'm just talking about the construction arena, which is what we fall into as our industry. But this is also agriculture, transportation. Think of every truck driver. There's a 2 million truck driver shortage in the United States. Compare that to the 500,000 or 600,000 construction workers, it's 2.5 million people that we don't have jobs, that their jobs are open, we just don't have the people for. And in the infrastructure projects, big beautiful bill, things of that nature, we need new roads, we need new bridges, data centers. Think about that. By the way, if you're a contractor, you got to look into the data center thing. There's a lot of work that's going to happen there in the next few years. So again, all those different things coming in, taking and understanding what we need for that. So that's the problem. What's a potential solution? Well, we're going to try, and we're not going to solve it. So let me stand there first and say PEI is not here to say we're going to solve the $2 million or the 2 million person shortage. What we're trying to do is at least provide a way and a career path that we can end up educating those folks that are going to enter our industry and continue to them so that they come in at least with a basic knowledge of what they need to do. It's ultimately the on-the-job training and the skill necessary to do that. That's your job. Partnering with PEI, though, we're able to give them that basic training up front. And that's really what we've done. And that's what our board came to us and said about 3 years ago, and they said, we really need to get training out there. PEI has great resources. We have a service tech training level 1 and 2 documents. We have all our recommended practices and such, well-respected, high-integrity documents that we have. Let's put them into a training process, which we did. So we created the online, basically the PEI Education Center, and it's an online training platform. Now, this isn't just a talking head that comes on and pops up on a screen and says blah, 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 blah. It's actually really looking at the science behind how you learn online by engaging the user, making them point and click, making things mandatory that you can't go to the next page until you do this. All of that allows them to have a much better retention rate than if I just handed you the document and said, read this. By the way, if you didn't know this, and I'm not an educator, but I've learned a lot of this in the past couple of years, when you give someone a book and ask them to read it, how many people actually read the entire book? 1% will read it page to cover. 80% won't even read 50% of the book. That's an amazing thing. So if you can guide the user through that book, it allows them to retain that information much better and they come out much more effective as a user. Again, you can see what's on the slides here, learning styles, e-coursework. I'll show you some of this when we get in there. It's also one of the ways that we looked at is the new generation, so that new to industry. A lot of it is the TikTok generation. They learn in these little bite-sized chunks. It's not sit down, have somebody tell you for 45 or 50 minutes on what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Their attention span literally is that of a flea. I mean, that next generation is, if you can't move to another subject literally within 2 or 3 minutes, they're moved on themselves. I hate the term multitaskers, but they're doing 500 different things while they're learning. We're attempting with the PEI Education Center to combat that or to utilize that training method. So there's a lot of science behind it. We partnered with a third-party training and development organization called RAD, R-A-D-D. And really what they're looking at is when you do things online, it's really about the audible piece, the visual piece, and what we call kinesthetic, or the engagement piece. That's the point and click piece, so you're keeping them engaged on the screen, i.e. think a Game Boy or whatever those things are, Nintendos. I know I'm dating myself there. But Atari, yeah, Pong. But anyway, so basically utilizing these 3 types of ideas is it's really about retention and having them understand and retain that information so that then when they go out in the field, when they are on a service call, or whether they're doing an inspection or something like that, they can see what's going on and they have that general basic knowledge to understand. So what do? I talked about we utilize the PEI content. So we have our recommended practices, and we had 2 documents we developed called Service Tech Level 1, Service Tech Level 2. Well, those 2 documents got a name change. We now call them Energy Handling 101 and Energy Handling 102. Very similar to kind of college coursework, again, or or career technical type documents. The intent was, as we went through, and the reason we renamed them is because everybody was saying, oh, they're only for technicians. Untrue. EHE 101 and 102, if you hire anyone, and this includes the regulatory community, by the way, nobody knows what goes on at a gas station. They know how to basically put gas in their car, and that's it. They don't know what those big round lids are out there. They don't know what's called a dispenser. They don't know that it's a breakaway. You know, to us, we've been doing with it all the time. It seems very, very simple. That person that's coming in, that's the receptionist, somebody calls up and says, hey, I need a 71 SO drop tube. What? I don't know what the hell that is. You know, I don't even know where to transfer your call. So the idea is we develop both of those documents to give that basic information. It's very, very simple to say, hey, here's how you do it. This is the equipment that's on the site. That's 101. 102 gets into, this is actually how it works. Got to take my medicine, sorry. Part of that is as we went through this and developed those first two courses, we then figured we'd get into the bundles. So we took our recommended practices, turned those into online courses as well, and then created these kind of bundles to meet different demands. See, the first one there we call HS Prep. That's really high school prep. That's someone really, if you're trying to get someone, this is, getting that ninth grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, something like that, getting them to go through these courses to basically make them aware of what our industry is. It also allows them to come out and possibly work after school, work in the summertime for various folks, and it gives them a very basic knowledge. Again, that's the 101 and 102 and RP 100, which is our install document. Again, we created those bundles to try to meet the needs of what our membership need. Ultimately, this is going to lead to what we call our PEI technical certification, and I'll kind of close today's seminar with that, what we're doing there, and the pilot program that we're starting there as well. So how's it look so far? Well, 3 years ago, as of basically the beginning of the month, we had more than 1,200 users. We've had more than 660 courses completed. 101 and 102 are our most two popular courses that we offer. And basically, we've got about 4 major companies that now, for their onboarding process, utilize the 101 and 102 bundle exclusively. Again, we're looking to establish specialty courses. If you know how our recommended practices are, we kind of have a basic core. This is how you build the site, this is how you maintain the site, this is how you test the site, this is how you decommission the site. We then have other things in there like generators, aviation, marina. They're kind of the specialty things. We're looking to develop the specialty courses as well. We've taken all of that. The only 2 courses are actually, there's 4 courses we don't have. Vapor recovery, RP 400, which is really just continuity, and then our CNG and LNG. So those 4 courses are not on there. So out of our 18 recommended practices, only 4 are not online. And really, I like to say this all the time. We came up with this, so we think it's cool. It's really built for the industry, by the industry. So it's the industry folks that are developing this as well. Talked about specialty courses, different things along that line, and that's just as we're rolling it out. So where is the PEI Education Center? Well, everything lives online anymore, so it would be at pei.org or our website. You're going to log in as a PEI guy. If you're a regulator, you can still log in. You'll get a login. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. You can pretty much get any of our resources online there as well. If you've never gone to the PEI website, you should. There's a ton of information, especially the regulatory community. Ton of information out there. Look at it. It can help you do your job every single day. But back to the education piece, and I'll show you this in a second. You're going to go to the education side or tab. We're going to do the drop down. We're going to hit on the education center, and then we'll launch that. The one thing I want to point out there is there's a video on there. It's about 15 minutes long. It's our third-party training collaborator that we partnered with, Rebecca Darryl. She's on there, and she tells you the science behind online training. It's funny that we started with COVID because a lot of the training that started came out of COVID because a lot of stuff went online. And you had anything from basically just YouTube videos, you get a guy popping up reading you stuff. Well, it's not really, I don't remember all that much. The retention rates are very low. So the intent was, how do you do that? And RAD has developed a process utilizing years of education. They're all education experts, and they've developed that, and this is how you do it online. The other thing is, they're only focused on the skilled trades. So they're not doing college courses or, how to run Excel or how to do a pivot table in Excel. It's not all that. It's really focused on manufacturing, agricultural, construction, in that aspect. So hopefully this will work right, because we had some little technical difficulties earlier, but we're going to kind of do the demonstration here. I got it. All right. Oh, it's still not up there. All right, hold on, hold the phone. Well, maybe not. Escape. There we go. I got it, I think. There we go. This is the PEI homepage. We developed a new website about 2 years ago, so this is our homepage there. Again, a lot of good information. Feel free to go through and check it out. But like I said, you're going to go to the education drop-down. You're going to hit the PEI Education Center. That's going to pop up. You're going to scroll down. Talks about all kinds of pricing options and things of that. This is that video I was talking about, which shows basically the same demonstration I'm going to show you today, as well as the background on the science behind how all this stuff works. So we'll hit Views at the Education Center. We're now in the PEI Education Center. It welcomes, goes over, it gives you a bunch of different information. For the purpose of today, there's our bundles. That's my activity. And I apologize for going quickly. This lists all the courses. And for the purpose of today, and feel free, you can go here too. As long as you don't even have to log in, but you can check all this. If you actually want to go through any of the courses, there's a cost associated with that. Feel free to reach out to PEI or myself if there's an issue with that. The sample course is something you can go through yourself. We're going to look at basically one chapter in there today, just for the sake of saying it and seeing what types of ideas are out there. But all the other courses are on there. One of the things that each course talks about, it gives you basically an overview. So in this one, again, it's the sample course, but these are actual 4 chapters out of each one of these courses online. Everything gives you an overview. It kind of gives you a time frame, idea what we're going to look at, and we're going to go from there. But one of the things I always like to look at is we're going to look at Chapter 12, submersible pumps. One of the things that you don't get, or I should say, one of the things you get with an online system that you don't get when you have just a paper document is there's links. You can send people things. You can show videos. You can do the what we call the kinesthetic type piece. It's that point and click. It's matching. It's moving here. It's going there. It's actually seeing things. In a document, I can show you a picture with a whole bunch of arrows and say, yeah, this is a drop tube and this is the flapper valve and all those things. Online, you actually get to point and click, and that opens up another window. And you'll see that again, that's the retention piece. It's also how that next generation works. They will not look at a picture. They want to be engaged. They want to basically point and click and have other things pop up and have all kinds of, sparklers and fireworks open up. We don't really have the sparklers and fireworks in here, but you'll get my idea when we talk about this in a second. The other thing, and I kind of glossed over this, it's also audible. So there's one of these things. How many kids do you see today that don't have an earbud in their ear? Seriously. They hear and can listen to music and can write texts and can watch TV and can play a game all at the same time, because that's how they've been ingrained since they've been born. So the intent is Audible has a really big piece. Utilizing the Audible piece in this is actually, I can hear it, I see it, I'm reading it at the same time. Utilizing those 2 pieces, that retention is much better than if you just gave them the document and said read it yourself, or just listen to an audiobook. So we build that into this as well. We're going to launch this real quick. We're going to start the course. By the way, it's a cutaway of a submersible pump, if you didn't know, which if you actually opened up our document is not there, but it is on the here. So one of the things, I'm going to talk about that Audible piece. You'll see this little caret here in this thing. Everything on here is the exact same text that if you took that document, whether it's a recommended practice or the service tech level, it's the exact same text. Nothing has changed. So you can open up the paper document if you wanted to and read along. It's the same thing. And I hope this is going to work, so we're going to try it. It worked earlier, but it was really loud. So if it's really loud, maybe we won't play the whole thing. So the intent is,
components. As a technician, you'll need to be familiar with the components of a submersible pump, also known as submerged turbine pump. Click on the items in the images below to learn more.
now for a lot of us in the room, that might seem, that's childish. Really? guarantee you the science behind it is, if you hear it and read it, you retain that information better than if you just read it yourself. I'm not the expert in that. You can listen to Rebecca when she talks about the science behind it. There's years of data. It's a lot of how the military does training. It really does work. We've done this with every employee we've hired at PEI, and believe me, they learn a lot more than somebody that just read the book. We actually did internal where we gave a book to the guy and said, read it, and then we had somebody go through the course. The person in the course got a 92 on the assessment when they were done. The person that read the book failed. Seriously. Again, not statistically anomaly, but you know, it is what it is. So again, here's that engagement piece, or the kinesthetic piece as well. You know, if we look at this, what are these different things? Well, that's a submersible pump. If you didn't know that, it's a red jacket. But I can now click on this. Boom. That's the wiring junction box. That's in there. So again, I might be able to have this in a book with a color picture and maybe an arrow and then like a little table down below, or I can do it right here. Oh, by the way, it can also tell me what it is.
Wiring junction box. Wiring connection housing. This is the junction box for the electrical connections.
So again, a lot of different things. You can point and click. Again, these will pop up. I'm not going to do all of them in the purpose of today, but you can go on there, you can go through the sample course, you can see this thing yourself. Everybody know what this is? Sometimes when I do this presentation, I like yell out and have people raise their hand and say, hey, what is this? And then we actually see if they're right or not. But we won't do that today. That's the riser pipe. Again, it's the vertical section, things of that nature. So again, it teaches you a lot more in how you do that. Same idea here. Here's an actual real-world picture of an operating site. What are these things inside here? I always wanted to know what this copper tube was. Copper line for leak detector. There's your line leak detector. How many people that you hired on day one actually know what a line leak detector is? Probably nobody, right? Again, you can give this to them and literally within the first week, first day and a half, they've at least seen it, somebody's told them about it verbally, and they've seen a picture, and they've actually engaged with it already. Your job now is to take them actually out in the field and then say, hey, here's what's this look like. Do you remember what these things are? We can continue through. Again, you'll kind of see this. Remember I said it's the exact same text that's in the document? It is, but it's conveyed and presented differently. This is the way the little bite-sized chunks are done. There's a picture behind it. Again, there's that I'm seeing it, I'm hearing it, I'm reading it, I'm engaged with it. That's how you retain that information much better. I'm going to jump over to the chapter. I can't do that, dang it. Sorry. Again, more pictures, gets into troubleshooting. Talk about safety. For the purpose of our sample test, we actually force them to go through and open up every one of these pluses where it won't let them go to the next section. So again, that's an engagement, so they have to go through, they have to point and click, or they won't be able to get to the next section. But I want to take the quiz. What we also have is a quiz at the end of each chapter. It's not huge. It's literally like maybe 2, 3, or 4 questions. It's the same questions that we'll use on the assessment that follows the end of the course. Every course comes with an assessment. In order to get your certificate that you've completed the course, you must score an 80% or better. But more than likely, they've seen at least 50% of all the questions on the test, even before they take the test. We're just going to buzz through this. Of course, this one has 5 questions, which is going to take forever. But we'll try to do this. So what is box A pointing in the picture? Anybody have an idea? By the way, they're multiple choice. The questions are also gauged by the educators to actually understand how you're choosing the different things. So I think it's the pump and motor. Oh. I submit it. They also get instant feedback if they're right or wrong. right on that question. It doesn't wait to go through all 5 questions. Boom, goes in there. This is the pump and motor. This is the actual text that comes right out of the document to tell them what that is, and we can go through that. So again, I'm not going to take the time today to go through each single one of these for the purpose of the day. It's really just to give you an idea. If you want to learn more, go to our website, click on the Education Center, go do the sample course, go through every single chapter on there. If you wanted a more in-depth type thing, let us know. We can basically do demonstrations for you separately through Zoom calls. We can come to your office. I visited the state of Arizona back in when it was extremely hot, so I believe that might have been July, and did them an actual demonstration for all of their folks there at the Arizona DEQ. But again, you kind of get the feel for it. We're going to exit that and try and get back to the presentation. Yay! It all worked. By the way, we did all that 5 minutes before we started this morning, so it actually worked. So thanks, Paige, for that one. So that was the demonstration of the Education Center. One of the things that I really want to talk about now is PEI is going to roll out, and we're in a pilot program stage right now, what we call our PEI technical certification. And this is where utilizing our online coursework, as well as some on-the-job training requirements, you go through the process. It'll be evaluated by our program manager. We have an education program manager at PEI. She'll evaluate all of the application information, and if you meet the requirements, you will get a PEI technical certification. It does not mean you are a certified technician for any manufacturer. Doesn't mean you meet any requirements for any state agency. It means that you have completed the work and have scored well enough to be considered certified by PEI in technical knowledge for the energy handling industry. Just want to clarify that. I know a lot of times people go, oh, is that going to have VITA route training? Are they going to be able to do testing? No, that's your job, man. Our job is to basically get them ready. But this also puts it into perspective that there's now a recognized organization that they've met some standard. That standard is going to be the PEI technical certification. So that's what we'll focus on for the next couple minutes. Some of this I already talked about. Relevant training, it's consistent relevant training. So if someone in Delaware takes that, you know they've had the same training as someone that took it in Arizona or Washington. And it's really preparing the next generation. That's what we're focusing on, but it's also for existing technicians as well. So there's 5 steps to go through this. Step 1 is to complete the online coursework, which I just showed you a demonstration of that. Put that in perspective. Each one of those courses that you go through, if you wanted to sit down and complete it from point A to point B, which we don't recommend, but if you did, it'll take you between 4 and 5 hours to complete each course. The courses are designed to basically do a lesson or 2 per day over the course of the first 2 weeks, or some process of on-the-job training as well. It's not to stick them in the classroom and go, oh, you got to pass. The intent is learn this information and then go out in the field with your supervisor, with your crew, with whomever, and learn that information and see it for real in the world. It's a collaborative approach. Again, the first 2 courses are 101 and 102, which we talked about. And then you have to complete what we call our core competency courses, which are those documents there. And again, this is the construction pieces, the maintenance pieces, the testing pieces, and the decommissioning pieces. I won't get into all the numbers as you see them. Step 2, complete the API WorkSafe program. Now you're probably saying, gee, why is PEI suggesting to utilize another association's program? Why? Because it's a damn good one. And why recreate the wheel? And everybody already requires it. I won't say everybody. Most people on the marketer side require the API WorkSafe program, also known as API 1646, and it was just updated, and PEI sits on the committee to update it. So, as well as a lot of our members do. So it is the one document, no need to do that. A lot of people already have it. By the way, it's $70. Regulators, from a safety perspective, which I know sometimes maybe you're not the safest guys out there, and I'll just say that, I would highly recommend that any new employee you run through the API 1646 program. This is how to be safe on a gas station site. It's $70. Even like government funding, you should be able to find $70. Part of that is you're going to have to complete that. API WorkSafe also requires an 80% or better. You'll need that and submit that. Step 3, now here we're going to talk about the on-the-job training piece. So first of all, we have 100 hours of installation and removal activities. It's 100 hours, like home, how does that mean? Think about that. That's like if I go and watch 2 tank sets. Now the issue is we're not expecting them to be the people that actually do it. So even from the regulatory side of the view, this is, hey, I've observed it. I've seen big tanks. I've seen what they look like. I've seen them go in the ground. I see what backfill is. Oh, that's a deadman in the bottom. Oh, there's straps. Again, this is an idea that we're not teaching them how to do this. We're recognizing them and making them aware that this is the stuff that takes place so that when they come out, they're familiar with that. We have a series, not getting into it right now, but basically when you go through the application process, there's about 10 tasks that you need to do in order to end up with the first 100 hours. Secondly, 100 hours of service and maintenance activities. Again, we have that same list of what's that mean? That's changing filters, that's changing a nozzle, placing a breakaway, things of that nature. Looking at a CRIND or a card reader, those types of things. Again, there's 10 tasks. Now, where did these tasks all come from? So we had a shadow committee that we put together known as our Technical Training Council. It was made up of 10 PEI members from across the country in different facets, service and contractors, distributors, manufacturers, and they came up with the idea of, hey, here are the tasks that we really think an employee needs to observe or be part of or see and understand what goes on in that aspects. That's where these tasks came from. So again, that's the 100 hours dealing with construction side, dealing with service side. And then the other 1,000 hours are basically just doing your job. You know, this is running service calls. This is, working in the warehouse. From a regulatory perspective, this is doing the paperwork. This is working in the field, doing inspections, things of that nature. So that's the intent, is really like 1,200 hours of work. Where's that 1,200 hours? Again, it came from that Technical Training Council. It's about 6.5 months worth of full-time work. So again, you're looking at that, focusing on the new to industry. If you want to become certified and you've been in the industry for 30 years, you probably got this one already done. Step 4, complete and submit your application. Again, this is kind of the paperwork side. Remember I said we have a program manager. All this is done online. It will end up getting sent to her. You got to document your on-the-job training, upload and submit all your information to PEI education team. Step 5, there's a supervisor verification here. So you're going to put a supervisor in there that understands that you actually did the work that you said that you did. They need to sign off on that first. If they don't sign off on that or they don't agree with it, it never comes to PEI to go any further. Second piece is supervisor signs it. It then comes to the PEI education team. They then verify all the information as well. So that program manager that we have, when that application comes in, she's going to review all of the information, probably going to call the supervisor and say, hey, does Joe or Sally really work for you? You know, what jobs were they on? Did they go to that QT site that she listed on here, and did the tank set? And do a lot of verification. So there is some verification, but we don't want to make it so difficult that you can't get it. So again, we're not looking to say, hey, these people are super trained and you can make them supervisors and go out and set tanks the next day. The issue is they now have that consistent relative base knowledge and they're able, and you can say, hey, I know that this person has the same technical certification as this person. They have that base knowledge base of where we can go and move forward with them. Timeline for rollout. You heard me talk about the pilot program. We are in that stage now. We announced it in our Tulsa letter about a month ago. We are actively seeking people that want to kind of participate in this. Our first step is to kind of make you aware of it. We're going to go over a bunch of the different ideas, understand how many technicians you're looking through that you want to put through this. We use the term technician. It could be a regulatory person. It could be anybody. One of the things is we've actually talked to EPA about this. There's a potential that they may take an employee or two and try and put them through this as well. Number one, to become certified, but also to kind of gauge the program as well and see if there's additional improvements we can make. Really looking at implementing this in Q1 of 2026. We're taking Q4 this year during the pilot program to gauge interest, work with different folks, understand what they want, and go from there with an ultimate rollout of mid-year 2026. So, talked a little bit about workforce development today. Challenges there. If you didn't know that workforce development is an issue, hopefully you do now. We're about 2.5 million people behind in our industry of what we need, and that's only going to grow. Demand is growing at roughly 5% a year, and our aging workforce, about 41% of it's going to retire in the next 5 years. So, perfect storm. PI Education Center and Demo. Hopefully I showed you some of that. You're interested in that. You want to learn more? Come see me, work with us. We can do more to show you there. You can do a lot of it by yourself online. Check it out. If you have questions, reach out to us. And then we talked about the technical certification program, which again, we're really excited about. The industry is very excited about. There's been a lot of buzz around this. And even from the regulatory community as well. There's a lot of interest in trying to understand, with PEI's backing, what that actually means. And other than that, thank you for your time and attention today. So.
Great presentation.
Thank you. Questions?
Okay, so we have questions. Yes.
Is PEI going to be willing to offer like a bundle deal for like states? You know, it's hard for us to get a PO for $70, but if I could get a PO for 200 or 500 or whatever and have the whole bundle, that may be easy.
We will not offer the API piece. You're going to have to do that on your own. We will offer, and we'll work with states. If a state comes to us and says, hey, we're looking to put X number of folks through this, we can work on a pricing model that works for both folks. I mean, that's the one, especially on the regulatory side. So, yeah, I mean, that would just be another conversation.
Okay.
But we're not selling the API piece. That's a separate device. We're
Got
just
that part.
requiring it.
It's just,
Yeah.
like I said, if I try to go to my guy, my program manager and say, hey, I need my 5 guys to go through these 5 courses, and we're going to do 30 POs for them to do that, there's going to be pushback on, is this the most productive use of our time? Or
Right.
if I could do one and just be.
Yep, we understand that.
I'm good. So I've got a comment that I hope can wrap into both of what you guys are saying and also answer some of the questions that we got going on here. And I don't want you to take this the wrong direction. I'm coming from a point of view of wanting to provide benefit to both. I retired from the Army 24 years ago. I was an officer candidate school, coordinator, commander of the school. I've currently been in this field for 1 year, so ignorant in this field. However, I do understand leadership, and I do understand the processes of bringing in people and people that you're looking for. And a couple things that I see as you're working through these various generations is you need to be able to understand where and how they can be valued. What matters to them is important. And what matters to someone who's been around for 30 years is not the same thing that someone who's been around or not been around for a year or just coming out of college. It's not the same. They need to understand and have an explanation of why that might be valuable to them, but they may never value that thing. And that's okay. You need to let them understand what they bring and their value to the organization, right? You get experience from people who've been around. That's awesome. You get new ideas, fresh looks, bring this into the future from people who are new, have got new training, understand new technologies, understand new ways into things. So you got to take advantage of that. We, as older people, and I'll put myself in that, whoever of you wants to put yourself in that space, need to understand flexibility doesn't mean, only, hey, how are we working, where are we working, what are we wearing when we come to work? it means a lot more than that. It also meaning that you need to be flexible in how you're working with people, how you're communicating with different people, how do they like to be communicated with, how do they learn, what your program offers in the multi-phase learning and kinesiological learning and all those things is fantastic. It's a push in the right direction and I love it. But we, as leaders and managers, need to learn new styles of how to teach, how to interact, and how to be a leader in our organization so that we can touch what matters to these people and give them what they need and make them excited about being at work, right? We need to learn our people. We need to learn our people and what makes them tick, right? The world cannot go back to 1980s. It cannot go back to 1950s. It's moved. And we'll never be there again. And we have the option of saying, of rolling with it and learning new ways to deal with people and to work with one another, or we can be utterly destroyed and run over by the world as it comes by us, and we're left in the dust as a fossil. And I don't think any of us who came to this want to be one of those people. I think what we want is to be able to bring people in and show them that they have something to give and that this job is important that we're providing and that it matters. So we need to find how we communicate that to each of these individual demographic groups, age groups, or whatever we're going to call it, so that they get that message. Why is this important? Why does it matter? And I love the idea of what you said, right? You're doing some recruiting at lower levels, trying to say, hey, maybe school's not the thing for you, regular school system, going to college and all those things, but there are some really awesome things that you can do, and trying to explain some of those things. So we've got to build a camaraderie, build a understanding, help create mentorship relationships, all those things that both of them were saying. So I didn't want to pass by the opportunity to put forward and to accentuate some of the things that I think might not have come across because some of the other things that were on the site. So thank you.
Hey, Paige, I think you might have a speaker for next Tanks
Yeah, I
conference.
was
so
thinking that
you
too.
might want to get his information.
He would be great to lead a discussion. Thank you so much for your comment. I agree with a lot of that.
Yeah, he was spot on. I mean, again,
Exactly.
all of that in that new generation and what they value is much different than what I valued when I entered the workforce. So.
And simultaneously, you can't let the older, and I hate using those terms, but the older generation depart because we're making all these changes either. We have to remember that there's value there, and how can I excite them and keep them refreshed into what we're doing so they don't get down to that, I just have to work because this is the pace for my life, and I don't do this, I'm going to die and go into the grave early.
Or I'm dying here and
Excited about what they're doing.
yeah.
Part of the problem I see on the whole generation of cohort of baby boomers, there's some baby boomers left in the upper levels of management that us Gen Xers, we're kind of stuck in that middle to lower upper level.
We're that middle
We're
child.
all going to retire at the same time. The baby boomers and us are all going to leave at the same time, and the millennials and Gen Xers are going to be go, where'd everybody go?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because as Gen Xers, we watched our parents and grandparents work until they were 70. And all these plans of we're going to buy an RV and go see the world. Then they sat at home for 3 years and were gone. We're not going to do that. So realizing that the two generations that are in the upper levels and upper middle levels of management are all going to disappear at the same time is something that our business and industry needs to be aware of.
Yep.
I met some people last night when I went out to dinner with our Region 5 gay folks. And the thing that I'm excited about the people that I met is that they seem to enjoy their work. They're excited about it. So what I would like to do, and what I would recommend anybody who's looking for this, data mine them, right? Hey, why are you here? What brought you here? What are you excited about? What do you want next? What are your goals and aspirations? And try to figure out what those are, and if you can make them work within your organization, awesome. And if I can build the beginning of your resume and that's all you want from this job, let me do that and let me do it well so that you can tell the next generation that they can get that done here too. And we'll have it recycled. I mean, I come from the Army or military background. We recycle people all the time, right? There's a regular flow. I mean, they move all the time. So that's not new to me. The key is making sure that you get that institutional knowledge shared and shared in a way that is understandable and living documents that help guide people through that process, and really try to find ways to make people better than they were when they got there, make them excited, because then they will talk about how awesome your organization is. They will spread that word like wind. Sorry, I'm talking about it.
That's okay. Well, that concludes the session. We want to thank everybody for attending today. And I'm pretty sure that Darryl and Scott maybe have a few minutes to talk to you personally if you have some specific questions you want to answer, or ask, and get the answer. But thank you again for attending, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.